Today I'm going to explain a movie called Original Sin. Luis Antonio Vargas is a wealthy owner of a coffee export company deciding to marry a young American woman capable of burying him a child. The man had a long correspondence with the girl and invited her to his place. Upon learning that the ship will soon arrive the port, Luis goes to meet his future wife Julia Russell. After waiting almost until morning, he meets a young beauty and is shocked because the photo was of a completely different girl. Julia admits that she did not want the man to peck only at her appearance, so she sent someone else's photo. In turn, Luis admits that he also deceived her because he does not work as a clerk in a coffee export company but owns it. First sight, having forgiven each other for mutual deceit and feeling sympathy at first sight, the couple goes to church to legitimize their relationship after exchanging rings and promising to love each other for the rest of their lives. Luis and Julia get married, organizing a feast for relatives and friends. Alan is sincerely happy for his friend and companion, so he is too talkative, which irritates his wife. Deciding to dance the first dance of the young Luis and Julia experience passion, desire, and continue to get closer. At the end of the banquet, they go home and spend the night in different rooms. As the girl is not ready for the wedding night, Luis is ready to wait and does not put pressure on his wife because they have their whole life ahead of them. In the morning, wife brings her husband coffee and drinks it with him. This raises questions in the man because she wrote in letters that she only drinks tea. Julia confesses that she was forced to deceive him since her sister read the letters before sending and she could not tell about it later. They traveled to coffee plantations where they continue to bond and open up to each other, feeling that their feelings are getting stronger. Julia and Luis return home and make love. Alan is worried that a friend is not thinking about work at all. He thought that he would get tired of his wife in a week, but he realizes that Luis is falling more and more in love with the young and charming Julia. In the evening, Alan and Luis go to the theater with their wives where they watch an American troupe perform. Augusta considers the performance primitive, but Julia does not share her opinion. Fallon's wife frankly encourages the girl and she, unable to withstand the ridicule, leaves. August notices that a married girl should not go alone and Luis leaves after Julia trying to find his wife. He sees that she is talking to one of the theater actors, but Julia lies to him, saying that her husband only imagined it. Sometime later, Luis receives a letter from Julia's sister. Emily is worried that her sister is not answering her letters or talking about her life in another country. Luis brings this letter home and asks his wife to write back to her sister so that she won't worry at night. Julia wakes up due to a nightmare, but her husband calms her down and notices several scars on the girl's back. In the morning, Luis picks up the reply letter and promises to send it to Emily as soon as possible so that she won't worry. A little later, the couple goes to a lawyer and man opens access to his accounts, both personal and work, so that his wife can easily manage the funds and not feel disadvantaged. After meeting up with a friend again and discussing his marriage, Luis returns home and meets Walter, a private detective who has been hired by Emily. The sister is still worried about Julia's disappearance and is trying to find her. Luis reassures the detective and informs him that everything is fine with his wife. In addition, they sent a letter to Emily. Walter is distrustful and asks to personally make sure that everything is fine with Julia. Luis agrees and invites the detective to his house for dinner next weekend. Upon returning home, Luis notices that his young wife has begun to spend her savings by ordering dresses for every day of the week. He is surprised that she does not open the chest with her things, but the wife says that there is nothing worthwhile there. While taking a bath together, Luis tells Julia that he met with the detective and he will visit them soon. At this moment, the girl's mood changes dramatically and the singing bird begins to terribly annoy her. A little later, the maid Sarah reports that someone twisted the bird's neck. Luis asks to bury her and not to tell his wife anything, although he suspects that she was involved in this. Sometime later, Emily arrives in Santiago and meets with Lewis. She is convinced that it was not her sister who wrote the letter to her and proves this to him by showing that the letters have different handwriting. Realizing that he was deceived, Luis rushes home and sees that Julia's belongings, like her wife herself, have disappeared. Deciding to check the chest, the man takes a revolver and shoots through the lock. Inside, he sees dresses, clothes and photographs of a completely different girl. Realizing that Julia has deceived him, days, weeks, months pass. Going to a lawyer, he learns that the girl also robbed him, withdrawing almost all the funds from the accounts, leaving mere pennies. She would have taken every last cent, but she could not do it as her husband's signature would be required. Days, weeks and months pass. Having been deceived, Lewis takes Julia's betrayal hard as he sincerely fell in love with her. Going down the social ladder, the man began to drink, smoke and meet easily accessible women in order to somehow ease his pain. Soon he meets Walter and he agrees to find the girl for a generous reward. After joining forces, the men go to the same ship on which Julia arrived, showing a photo of two girls. They learned that the real Julia was here. They also know Lewis's wife because they saw her as part of an American theater troupe. Arriving in Havana, the men stop at a hotel to rest and then continue their search for Julia. While Lewis is distracted, Walter steals his revolver and hastily leaves the man's room. In the evening, Lewis goes to the restaurant on the ground floor to have dinner and hears a familiar voice. He recognizes his missing wife and sees that she is courting an elderly colonel. Upon learning that the girl lives in a hotel, Lewis sneaks into her room. Soon Julia and the colonel come into the room. The elderly man insists on staying until the morning, but girl drives him away as she is not ready to make love before marriage. After escorting the colonel out the door, Julia sits down at the table to write a letter to a certain Billy. Lewis comes out from behind a screen and asks who it is and how many men his wife has. The girl admits that this guy is her lover. Lewis wants to take Julie's life and she doesn't mind, but warns that the money cannot be returned since she gave it to Billy. Realizing that passion and feelings are still alive, Lewis does not dare to commit a crime and makes love with his wife. She later confesses that her real name is Bonnie Castle. She is an actress of a theater troupe, and during the performance she met with an actor because this is the same Billy. They grew up in an orphanage and have been inseparable since birth, so Bonnie owes him too much. Lewis is convinced that his wife really loves him and offers to forget about his real name and become his wife Julia again. Experiencing reciprocity, the girl agrees to wear an engagement ring. A little later, the couple's romantic conversation is interrupted in the morning by the colonel, who has returned to the girl's room. Lewis decides to show that she is busy and naked opens the door, seeing an opponent and a revolver. The colonel understands that it is better to leave and, apologizing, says goodbye to Julia. A little later, Lewis meets with a private detective and learns that the body of the real Julia was found. Someone plunged a knife into her neck and threw her overboard. Perhaps it was Bonnie, perhaps Billy, but now the police are looking for them, so soon the criminals will be found. Lewis not only does not say that he met his wife, but also secretly takes her away to start life from scratch. Having moved to another city, a married couple is looking for a new house but is in no hurry to buy it. A couple of days later, Lewis accidentally meets a detective looking for Julia on the street. He knows that the girl was on the train coming here, which means that the chances of finding her getting higher every day. Lewis suggests discussing it at the cafe but uses it as a red herring. Having run out through the back door, he goes home and collects his wife's things. As it turned out, Walter followed him and is ready to arrest the girl. Saving his beloved, Lewis sends the detective to the next world. Realizing that he committed a crime, Lewis begins to panic and does not know what to do next. His wife asks him to calm down and go to the station to buy tickets. As soon as the man leaves the house, it turns out that Walter and Billy are the same person. Moreover, he is alive, as the actor pretending to be a detective changed the bullets in the hotel for blanks. Billy offers to rob Lewis again because he still has a lot of money and he is easy prey. Julia loves her husband and refuses to help her former lover. The man is too persistent and convincing. Running his hand under the girl's dress, he persuades her to once again deceive and use the wealthy Lewis, taking everything from him to the last penny. In the evening, the man returned home and was surprised that Julia got rid of the body without his help. Realizing that the police would be looking for them, the couple went to a poor area in a nearby town. They have not much money and it is dangerous to withdraw them, so girl suggested trying something new. In just one evening, she trained her husband in card cheating and arranged a meeting with other players while working as a servant. Julia gives Lewis signals about what cards his opponents have. At first everything is fine, and the man won a lot, but soon one of the players noticed this, gathered at the table, not only severely punished Lewis by throwing him out into the street, but also used his wife dirty. Realizing that they will not be able to live the life that Julia is used to, Lewis goes to his homeland. He sells a share in the business to Alan and after saying goodbye to his friend returns back. Meanwhile, Julia lets Billy into the house and allows him to make another scar on his back, proving her devotion to her lover. After dinner, Julia goes to the kitchen and notices that there are rats in their house. Despite the late hour, she goes to the pharmacy to buy poison, not trusting his wife. Lewis decides to follow her and follows. He soon realizes that Julia is not going to the pharmacy but to the hotel, having tracked down his wife and seeing that she was with Billy, who turned out to be absolutely safe and sound. Lewis overheard their conversation. It turned out that the couple wanted to get rid of him and make him fall asleep forever without interfering in the dialogue. Lewis returned home without hearing that Julia was against the idea of her lover because she sincerely loves her husband. Julia soon returns home and gives her husband rat poison to sprinkle in the kitchen. Meanwhile, she makes them coffee and invites Lewis to the table. He understands that coffee is poisoned and is in no hurry to drink it, learning about how rats fall asleep forever from poison. Taking out a revolver, the man confesses that he knows almost everything and asks Julia to tell the truth. She reports that the bullets were blanks and Billy waits outside while she gets rid of her husband and puts out the light, giving him a signal after admitting that he loves her more than life itself and making the girl regret all the stupid things she did. Lewis drinks poisoned coffee. Julia realizes that she also loves only him and tries to save her husband. After accidentally breaking the lamp, she leads her husband through the back door. The couple tried to escape and board the train, but Billy chases them. At some point, the man manages to catch the spouses and put a knife to Julia's throat, saving his wife. Lewis shoots him but with a live cartridge and injures the enemy. The police arrive at the scene and ask who needs help. After saying goodbye to Billy, Julia takes a revolver and puts another bullet into him to deprive the cops of a choice. Time passed. Lewis survived, but Julia ended up in prison and was sentenced to death a day before the verdict. She tells the whole story to the priest. In the morning, the police come to execute the girl, but they find a priest under the scarf. He took pity on Julia, letting her change and run away. Now she and Lewis are happy together and once again use cheating tricks to rob rich people who play with them at the same table.